Gerbiami kolegos,
Dear colleagues, please take your seats. We are starting the sitting of the 27th of June, 2022.
gerbiami kolegos,
Dear colleagues, today's sitting will begin with the presentation of the Alexandra Stulginskio Star of the Seimas of the Republic of Lithuania to U.S. Senator Richard Joseph Durbin. The solemn ceremony is attended by President Valdas Adamkus, chairperson of the reconstituent Seimas Landsbergis, Senator Richard Joseph Durbin. Please welcome our guests.
gerbiami kolegos,
Dear colleagues, I'd like to remind you that Senator Durbin and His Excellency President Valdas Adamkus have become the first recipients of this honorable award by the Seimas. Senator Durbin is a sincere friend of Lithuania in the U.S. Congress who has been helping the country for over 30 years on all major issues. In the spring of 1990, after Lithuania regained its independence, Richard Durbin authored the House of Representatives joint resolution calling on the United States to support Lithuania's independence. As leader of the Congressional Baltic Caucus, he contributed to important pro-Lithuanian resolutions before and after Lithuania's declaration of independence. Since 1996, as a U.S. Senator, Richard Durbin has continued to provide assistance to Lithuania, especially after its accession to NATO, and has continuously helped to develop Lithuanian-U.S. interstate relations. Senator Durbin has made a significant contribution to the fact that today we can call Lithuanian-U.S. relations strategic. It is therefore symbolic that the award to Senator Durbin is given this year, which marks the centenary of the U.S.-Lithuania relations. Russia's war against Ukraine, its pressure on other countries, and on the Euro-Atlantic security architecture as a whole have highlighted the importance of solidarity and the unity among the world's democracies as never before. Senator Durbin is in Vilnius on his way to the NATO summit in Madrid. This summit will be a litmus test to our collective will and ability to respond to threats. It gives me great confidence to know that in Madrid, at this historic turning moment, there will be heralds of freedom and democracy like Senator Durbin. At this point, I'd like to invite Viktoras Pranckietis, the initiator of the Alexandra Stulginskio Star, to the rostrum to take the floor.
Ačiū.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Seimas and the government of Lithuania, dear U.S. Senator Richard Durbin, today we have the honor to be with you at the time of your glory in the history of democratic Lithuania. You have been actively involved in building and defending democracy of Lithuania for over 3 decades. You have dedicated 30 years for people's freedom to speak in their own language, freedom of thought, freedom to grow freely, and freedom to fight for the freedom of others. Your strengths and values have always allowed you to rise above party differences when you worked for the common goals with the late esteemed Senator John McCain. Since your first visit to Lithuania in 1979, when you observed the first democratic elections in Lithuania in 1990, when you told the world after the bloodshed January 13th event to the world from the Capitol Hill that there can be no perestroika without the freedom in Lithuania, today Lithuania has once again gained your attention, which is so needed for defending democracy. But today We jointly dedicate this attention to Ukraine that is fighting for democratic values across Europe and the world each day. It is hard to express this feeling in words, but we are very grateful to you. Lithuania, on behalf of the Seimas, thanks you and bestows upon you the highest award of the Seimas, the sign of respect and appreciation, the Alexander Stulginskio star, the star that links us with the diplomatic relations between the Republic of Lithuania and the United States, established 100 years ago. President Alexander Stulginskis witnessed their legitimization on the 28th of July 1922. Following 100 years of historical twists and turns, his name gives meaning to parliamentarism and democracy. The Alexander Stulginskis star is shining to you, Senator Durbin. You and President Valdas Adamkus have become the first nominees of the Seimo Centenary Award. You are the first, as you were the first, when establishing and expanding the area of democracy that is now marked by the Alexander Stulginskis star. Thank you for your personal attention and relations during the last visit to the U.S. Senate in 2019 for the delegation of the Speaker of the Seimas, together with the delegations of our partners, delegations of the Speaker of the Seimo of Poland and the Seima of Latvia. Today, all of these countries, especially in the face of aggression, understand the value and price of democracy in the European Union and the alliance of NATO with the US at its core. Thank you very much, and I congratulate you. I wish for you to be proud for the work done in the name of democracy, as we are proud of you and your friendship. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pranckietis. Now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Antanas Vinskus, Chairman of the Commission for the awarding of the Alexander Stulginskio Star.
Gerbiamas Prezidente Valdai Adamkus.
President Valdas Adamkus.
Gerbiamas Lietuvos Respublikos aukščiausios tarybos atkuriamojo Seimo pirmininkė.
President Chairman of the Supreme Council Reconstituent Seimas, Professor Vytautas Landsbergis. Senator Richard Joseph Durbin. Madam Speaker, members of the Seimas, honorable guests. I am delighted that at today's Seimas sitting we are continuing a very beautiful tradition. The Seimas Award, the Alexander Stulginskio Star, will be presented to the United States Senator Richard Joseph Durbin. On the proposal of the Commission for the awarding of the Alexander Stulginskio Star and by resolution of the Seimas, the Alexander Stulginskio Star this year is awarded to two distinguished personalities, the President of the Republic of Lithuania, Valdas Adamkus, who was presented with this award at the Seimas sitting on the 17th of May of this year, and the Senator of the United States, Richard Joseph Durbin. We are delighted that esteemed Senator Durbin has honored all of us with his arrival at the Seimas, and that we have the opportunity to present him with the Seimas' highest award for his merits in the promotion of parliamentarianism, democracy, and statehood. Madam Speaker, esteemed members of the Seimas, thank you for giving me the privilege to introduce to you the activities and outstanding contributions of U.S. Senator Richard Joseph Durbin to Lithuania. U.S. Senator Durbin is one of the most influential Americans of Lithuanian descent in U.S. politics. Senator Durbin has been a strong supporter of Lithuania's pursuit and consolidation of independence, its quest for international diplomatic recognition, and has contributed to the development of interstate relations between Lithuania and the United States. as well as in helping Lithuania integrate into the global community of states. For 30 years now, as Mr. Pranckietis has mentioned, Senator Durbin has helped the Lithuanian state on the key issues, thus contributing to the strengthening of Lithuania's democracy, statehood, and diplomatic relations between Lithuania and the United States. It should not be forgotten that Senator Durbin was a champion of Lithuania's quest for independence. He represents two epochs: the epoch of non-recognition of the occupation of the Baltic states until 1990, when our country's tricolor was flying for 50 years at the U.S. State Department and the Embassy of Lithuania in the United States, and the consolidation of Lithuania's independence after the restoration of Lithuanian independent state following the proclamation of the Act of Independence on the 11th of March 1990. In the spring of 1990, when Lithuania regained its independence, Senator Durbin authored the joint resolution by the U.S. House of Representatives calling on the United States to support Lithuania's independence. As leader of the Congressional Baltic Caucus, he was a major contributor to important pro-Lithuanian resolutions, both before and after Lithuania's declaration of independence. Since 1996, as a U.S. Senator, Richard Joseph Durbin has continued to provide assistance to Lithuania, especially in the lead-up to its accession to NATO. According to the nominator of the award, Emanuelis Zingeris, chair of the Group for Interparliamentary Relations with the U.S. Congress and signatory to the Act of Independence, Richard Joseph Durbin's extremely significant visit to Lithuania from Berlin immediately after the promulgation of the Act of Independence of the 11th of March 1990, while the Soviet occupation troops were still in Lithuania, lifted the spirits of the Lithuanian people and helped consolidate the desire of the Lithuanian people to join NATO. Žygimantas Pavilonis, former Lithuanian ambassador to the U.S., also said the same. Senator Durbin was the first member of the U.S. Congress to visit and support Lithuania after the events of the 13th of January 1991 in Lithuania. Upon his return to Washington, Senator Durbin persuaded U.S. President George Bush to recognize the restoration of Lithuania's independence. Senator Durbin is an active supporter of Ukraine that is facing Russia's aggression and is one of the two co-chairs of the Senate Ukraine Caucus. This is important for Lithuania because the future of the whole of Europe depends on Ukraine's security. Esteemed Senator Durbin, on behalf of those gathered here, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your many years of support for Lithuania's pursuit and consolidation of independence, and for Lithuania's international diplomatic recognition, for the development of the interstate relations between the Republic of Lithuania and the United States of America, and for your assistance in Lithuania's integration into the global community of nations. Honorable Senator, I sincerely believe that not only I, but also the majority of Lithuanians living in Lithuania and abroad are extremely happy and proud that you have roots in Lithuania, that you are contributing to the strengthening of democracy and statehood in our homeland Lithuania through your persistent and sincere work. Senator Durbin, although you do not live in Lithuania, and Lithuania is no longer your home country, but the home country of your beloved mother, but the values that have been brought to you by your mother have taught you to learn the native roots, to protect the freedom-loving countries, and your work have inspired us. Pope Francis, in his book, The God is Always Young, wrote that if we have roots, we become not alone. Argentine poet Desert said that as we see beautiful blossoms in the trees, we should not forget that we can appreciate the view because the tree has its roots. I would be very happy if you remember those words, Senator Durbin. We cherish, I'm very happy that you cherish the relics of your grandmother. The prayer book of the 1863, and that she gave this prayer book to your mother, Ona Kutkaitė, when she was 2 years old. And the citizenship of Lithuania of your mother is still kept in the capital of the U.S., Washington. We say that the smaller the nation, the bigger the national pride. It is our strength. It is the symbol of our national strength. We therefore often repeat the words, Turpe est in patriam.
Gėda gyventi tėvynėje ir nemylėti tėvynės istorijos ir ją nekartot. Ir jeigu senatoriau šiandien būtų gyva jūsų mama,
if your mother was alive, Senator Durbin, I believe that she would say the same words.
ji meldžiasi.
And
Tai štai kokius aš tikiu jūsų mama sakytų žodžius.
I believe that your mother would say the words that I was born here and I will never stop loving my home city, Jurbarkas, because my brothers and my sisters are here. I will never stop loving my city and would like to conclude my speech, dear Senator, with the words by
Stulginskio žvaigždės laureato žodžiais, kuriuos jis sakė savo kalboje. Dirbkime tėvynei drauge, neskirstykime tautos į savus ir svetimus, išrinktuosius gyvenimo eilinius ir atstumtuosius. Ateities kartos mums atleis už klaidas.
Future generations will forgive our mistakes, but they will not forgive the lies. Therefore, we have to be truthful to ourselves. We have to write the history of truth. We should be writing the history today without waiting for another day. And we should be working for the benefit of Lithuania. These were the words by President Adamkus. May God save us. Dear Senator, we are well aware of what we are doing, and we will continue on doing so. But we do cherish your support. Thank you.
Dėkoju gerbiamam Antanui
Thank
Vinkui
you,
už kalbą ir
Mr.
dabar
Vinkus,
norėčiau pakviesti apdovanojimo
for your speech. And now
ceremonijai
I would like to
bei
invite you
gerbiamą
to
senatorių
the
Josefą
ceremony and for receiving the award.
take the floor
Mr.
for the
Durbin,
award ceremony and your speech.
the floor is yours.
Labas. Ačiū. Speaker, President Adamkus, Prime Minister Šimonytė, Professor Landsbergis, esteemed members of the Seimas, ačiū. And thank you, Mr. Pranskietis, for inspiring this great award. And to the former speaker, Mr. Vinkis, thank you for your beautiful words. That was a wonderful introduction. I do not see him in the audience, but I want to also thank an old friend, Mr. Zingeris, who has been my friend for many years. 111 years ago, a young mother in Jurbarkas said goodbye to everyone and everything she had ever known, gathered her 3 small children, and sailed for America to join my grandfather. In her arms, she carried their youngest child, a 2-year-old daughter. That little girl, Ona Kutkaita, was my mother. My mother never saw this beautiful land again, but she carried Lithuania in her heart. She prayed for Lithuania's freedom, and she taught her children to be proud of our Lithuanian blood. If my mother were here today to see her son accept this honor, named for President Stulginskis, one of Lithuania's great patriots, she would be astonished and deeply moved. So am I. I'm especially honored to receive this prestigious award in the same year as President Val Adamkus, and in his presence. As the president who led Lithuania's entry into the European Union and NATO, President Adamkus' contributions to Lithuania's security and integration into Europe are historic and monumental. I am so proud to call him my friend. The Lithuania of my grandmother's time was ruled by a Russian Tsar who tried to force his religious belief and his native tongue on this land. I have shared with you that my grandmother carried to America her Catholic prayer book written in Lithuanian. To her, it was an act of courage and defiance. I have come to learn that she truly reflected the spirit of this nation. The first time I saw Lithuania was in 1979 during the darkness of Soviet occupation. A new international exchange program created to foster understanding among young elected officials chose me as someone who just might have a future in politics in America. They invited me to tour the Soviet Union as part of a delegation of young American leaders of the future. I remember my impression of the Soviet Union, oppressive and gray. The Lithuania I visited in 1979 was far different than the vibrant democracy we know today. In Vilnius, the building that is now the KGB Museum was still KGB headquarters, where Lithuanian patriots were interrogated and hundreds were killed. The beautiful church of St. John's at the University of Vilnius had been used as a warehouse and then closed by the communists. St. Casimir Church had been turned into a museum of atheism. In the historic March 11 hall, a hammer and sickle filled the space now occupied by the Lithuanian Vytis. It was a different world, and yet, despite the oppressiveness of occupation, one could sense Lithuania's spirit and determination to once again be free. I remember attending a mass at a Catholic church early on Sunday morning. Fathers and mothers brought their little children to keep the faith alive in their families. I met with the saintly Archbishop, now Cardinal, Tamkevicius of Kaunas. His spirit was unbroken by 10 years of Soviet imprisonment. And then I witnessed the reemergence of Lithuania's spirit in 1990, when I returned as a member of the United States Congress, leading a delegation to oversee your historic election. I will never forget the scene in the dead of winter, just a few steps from here, when this historic city was alive with the energy of people preparing to fight for their freedom. I saw the Seimas building protected by trenches and sandbags. I remember small groups of school children praying their rosaries at the barricades and lighting little candles to stick in the sandbags. My friends took me inside this building in a very quiet way, careful way, to show me the secret arsenal of the Lithuanian freedom fighters. They opened a closet door. Inside, 5 or 6 old rifles, useful for a farmer or a hunter, but no match to the Soviet war machine. 9 months later, I watched from America as Gorbachev's Soviet tanks rolled into Vilnius to try and crush your democracy. 14 martyrs died that day for Lithuania's freedom. But the people of this proud nation were armed with stronger weapons than Soviet tanks and artillery shells. Like today's valiant fighters in Ukraine, they were armed with faith and courage. Freedom prevailed. 6 months later, the Russians formally recognized Lithuania's independence. And by the end of the year, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. I want to say a word about my favorite music professor, Dr. Landsbergis. There were Zelensky moments in his leadership when he showed uncommon courage against overwhelming odds, but he spoke for people who were determined for freedom. 20 years later, I returned to this historic building on the 20th anniversary of the Defenders of Freedom Day. Among those seated where you are now were family members of the fallen heroes of January 13th, and my old friends, President Adamkus and Professor Landsbergis. Today, I see a Lithuania that is small in size, but mighty in spirit, a vital member of the European Union and NATO, a champion of human dignity and freedom, not only in the Baltics, but in Belarus, Europe, Ukraine, and throughout the world, a Baltic beacon of hope in troubled times. I see a vibrant economy that offers increasing hope to the excluded and greater opportunity for all. No longer must Lithuania's sons and daughters leave. They can stay and raise their families here in freedom and prosperity. You have ensured that your freedom can never be held hostage for fuel, and your euros will not finance Putin's hellish war in Ukraine or any other sovereign nation. And I assure you, the United States will stand with Ukraine's courageous defenders, its extraordinary leader, its displaced citizens in Ukraine, Lithuania, and throughout the world. And I commend you and the people of the Baltics, Lithuania, and Poland for accepting Ukrainian refugees, giving them the safety of your homes during this terrible time. We will never surrender an inch of NATO's territory to Russian aggression. Not 1 inch, not now, not ever. The commitment of the United States and NATO to Article 5 is a guarantee of common defense and to our common struggle for freedom and democracy. That struggle is strong and resolute. We await the day when Putin's gang of thugs and murderers collapses. True leaders like Alexei Navalny and Vladimir Kara-Murza will be liberated from their prison cells, and a new democratic Russia is born. This is the message that I will carry tomorrow to Sweden and then to the NATO summit in Madrid, where the United States will support the expansion of NATO to include Sweden and Finland. For more than 200 years, our two nations have supported each other in our commitment to freedom, security, and human dignity. It was a Polish-Lithuanian war hero, Tadeusz Kościuszko, who fought for America's freedom in our War of Independence from Great Britain. His close friend Thomas Jefferson called him as pure a son of liberty as I have ever known. Today, a monument to this shared national hero stands in the park across from the White House in Washington. After the First World War, 200 Lithuanian Americans, veterans, traveled here to help drive out Russian occupiers. America's commitment to this partnership is unbreakable. We've stood together in times of trial, and we stand together today. I'll close with one treasured memory. Later today, I will meet the mayor of Jurbarkas. Waiting for that meeting sparks a memory from my first visit to my mother's birthplace. It was with my late brother in the year 1997. He brought along a photograph of my mother as a young child. We showed it to a group of people, hoping someone just might remember our family. Out of a group of strangers stepped a man holding a copy of the exact same photo. He was a distant cousin. The family had received the photo many years before. They'd kept it. After almost a century, our family, which had been divided by czars, Nazis, the Iron Curtain, was reunited. We found family we never knew. Today, a Russian invader is forcing families in Ukraine to hide in basements, bury their beautiful children, and scatter to the four corners of the earth. The brave Ukrainians who cannot match his military might still have the courage and resilience to win a victory. But Putin will fail, along with the tyrant in Minsk and strong men like them throughout the world, as long as we remain united. For you showed the world 3 decades ago on the streets of Vilnius and across Lithuania. Tanks and terror cannot suppress forever a people who are determined to be free. Thank you for this great honor. Tekavojo Lietuva. Long live Lithuania. Tekavojo Liskėjo Demokratija. Long live freedom and democracy. Ačiū.
Thank you, Senator Durbin. It was a true honor to have you here today. Thank you. Dėkojame senatoriui Durbinui už jo kalbą.
I thank Senator for his speech, and dear colleagues. We are concluding the part of the session devoted for the award ceremony of Senator Durbin.